Story 1. The Crying Woman on the Highway. It was winter of 2012. The desert highway in New Mexico stretched 4 miles without a single streetlight. A truck driver named Daniel had been on the road for more than 14 hours. His eyelids were heavy, and the only sound was the steady rumble of his truck engine. The clock on the dashboard glowed 2:07 a.m. The night was pitch black, the kind of darkness where the horizon disappears. Suddenly, through the fogged windshield, Daniel's headlights illuminated something on the road up ahead. At first, he thought it was an animal, but as he drew closer, his blood ran cold. Standing in the center of the highway was a woman. She wore a long white dress, torn at the edges, swaying slightly in the wind. Her hair was tangled, covering most of her pale face. She wasn't moving, except for the faint sound of sobbing that Daniel swore he could hear even from inside the truck. He slammed on the brakes, the truck screeching to a halt. For a long moment, he just sat there gripping the steering wheel, his chest tight, breath shallow. Against every instinct, he stepped out. The desert air was freezing. The road was silent, and the woman was still standing there, crying softly over her shoulder. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need help?" Daniel called out, his voice echoing across the empty stretch. The woman lifted her head slowly, her eyes hollow and glistening with tears. Her lips trembled as she whispered just one word: "My daughter." Daniel's skin prickled. "Where's your daughter?" he asked, stepping forward carefully. "Do you need me to call someone?" But the moment he blinked, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, nothing but the endless road stretching into the dark. Shaking, Daniel rushed back to his truck, locked the doors, and drove until he reached the nearest gas station. The next morning, he told the police what happened. The officer's face turned grim. "5 years ago," he said, "a woman and her little girl died in a crash on that exact stretch of road. People see her sometimes, still searching for her child." Daniel never drove that highway again at night. Story 2. The Silent Hotel Room. In the summer of 1998, a college student named Brian was backpacking across the Midwest. One rainy evening, he checked into an old hotel that had been around since the 1920s. The place smelled of damp carpet and cigarette smoke. The wallpaper peeled in strips, and the halls were dimly lit by flickering yellow bulbs. At the front desk, the tired old clerk handed Brian a brass key. As he turned to leave, the clerk muttered, "Don't stay in room 204. That room isn't safe." Brian stopped. "Why not?" he asked. The clerk's hands trembled as he avoided eye contact. "Just don't." Curiosity got the better of Brian. He insisted on room 204. Against his better judgment, the clerk agreed. The room was strange. The bedspread smelled musty. The mirror was cracked in the corner. The air felt colder than the hallway, almost damp. Brian brushed it off as old building vibes and tried to sleep. At 3:11 a.m., he woke up to the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy. They moved from one side of the room to the other and back again. His heart pounded as he sat up, staring into the darkness. He flicked on the lamp, but the room was empty. Then the old TV in the corner crackled to life. Static filled the screen for a few seconds, and then an image appeared. It was a live feed of his own hotel room. He saw himself sitting on the bed, confused and frightened. The camera angle seemed to be from the ceiling, though he could see no camera in the room. Then he noticed something worse. On this screen directly behind him was a tall, shadowy figure. It stood motionless, featureless, but it was unmistakably there. Brian spun around. Nothing. He looked back at the TV. The figure was still behind him. Sweating and terrified, he unplugged the TV, but the screen was still on, the image frozen on the figure looming closer. The next morning, when the cleaning staff entered room 204, Brian was gone. His bag, clothes, and wallet were still there. On the nightstand was a single note, written in messy handwriting. "It's watching me." The hotel shut down a few years later, but locals still whispered that no one ever checked out of room 204. Story 3. The doll in the basement. In 2007, the Carter family bought an old Victorian house in Ohio. It was a fixer-upper, with creaky wooden floors and a damp basement that hadn't been touched in decades. While cleaning the basement, Mr. Carter found something odd. In the far corner, sitting on a chair, was a porcelain doll. Its glass eyes were chipped, the red dress faded, and its porcelain skin cracked around the mouth. Their daughter, Emily, immediately begged to keep it. Against their better judgment, the parents allowed her to place it in her bedroom. That night, strange things began. Doors creaked open by themselves. Objects moved slightly out of place. Emily woke up crying, saying, "The doll talks to me." The parents dismissed it as nightmares, but when Emily's screams became nightly, they decided to investigate. They placed a camera in her room to prove nothing was wrong. The next morning, they reviewed the footage. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the doll slowly turned its head toward the camera. Its lips began moving, as if whispering something. Then its eyes blinked. For a long moment, the doll simply stared directly into the lens, as if it knew it was being watched. Finally, it tilted its head to one side, like a predator studying its prey. The Carters left the house the very same day. They never returned. The house remains abandoned to this day, and locals say that if you pass by at night, you can sometimes hear a little girl's laughter echoing from the basement, followed by the faint sound of porcelain cracking.